cordiality. We saw that from him very much. I also think it's worth pointing out
I was making this point before. Are we ready? Are we ready to switch over?
When it came to his
all right, folks, come join us for the recap link. You will notice it right below here in our description of this. We're going to go to that recap link in 5,
over the course of the next few minutes. But there was a big one that we need to talk about at the top of it, which came on immigration in the discussion tonight, and particularly the Trump administration's plan, a major centerpiece of their campaign to undergo mass deportations for undocumented immigrants in this country. J.D. Vance,
let's turn these guys off. I'm curious. Let's head over to CNN and get a sense of like what the the
chattering class.
But I was saying this point earlier, which is that is painful. This point earlier, in high-level baseball, the batter who's facing somebody who's throwing the ball 80, 90, 100 miles an hour guesses in the instant before the pitch is thrown. And I think my sense is that the Harris-Walz campaign assumed that J.D. Vance was going to come in and be much more aggressive and be the dick that he is on, with all due respect, on that he's been on the campaign trail. And I think the idea was that Walz was going to be almost not quite rope-a-dope, but like somewhere around that where he's going to be Midwestern nice and create the contrast that way. But I think that it appears to me that when Vance was clearly not going to do that, and there was a sense that Walz kept waiting for Vance to be a dick, and it never happened. The Walz needed to sort of switch tactics too and get more aggressive. That's my sense.
He tried to do it with the Jan 6 thing, and I think he kind of
that was almost one of the most effective moments.
Way too late.
It was close. He came close, but he didn't quite get there.
But if you're
Let's hear what Jake
swinging,
Tapper's talking.
He
expressed in the first 20 minutes
consternation with the Republican Party for not reaching out more, not talking to more people, wanting to provide more options for women. And yes, absolutely, Tim Walz did not go after him on that.
That's part of the point, is that you're actually explaining exactly what I think was missing on the debate stage. J.D. Vance has a record on abortion. And you didn't really hear about that from Tim Walz. It doesn't have to be lengthy, but you just didn't hear it. And secondly, J.D. Vance's job tonight was to launder Trumpism for middle America, for those undecided voters. And I think that in large part, he was able to do that without getting a whole lot of pushback from Tim Walz on the stage. And maybe they're talking to different segments of that undecided pool, but
I don't think so.
Vance was able to just do what he came to do, which is to take Trumpism and just package it up in a different way.
What I said, rehab. I don't necessarily think at the end of the day, though, that what we saw is going to make a big difference at the top of the ticket.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you listen to J.D. Vance describe the Trump years, low inflation, the world was not on fire, peaceful transfer of power.
The world was not on fire.
Great. I don't know that that's necessarily exactly what the world experienced.
If you leave the public with that impression, that's what they're going to.
Especially when it comes to the peaceful transfer of power. There was not, just for the record, there was not a peaceful transfer of power. We all saw it. John King, what were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are based on incoming from Democrats and Republicans throughout the debate, and they saw this as a debate in two parts. Essentially, the first 40 minutes where a lot of Democrats were getting a little nervous, and Republicans were quite elated, thinking that J.D. Vance was prosecuting the case they want to prosecute, going after the Biden-Harris record on the economy, going after the Biden-Harris record on the border, repeatedly talking about inflation was lower, prices were lower, things were better in your life when Donald Trump was president, things are worse now. The same group, even the Republicans conceded, and Democrats were much more happier with that second hour, where they believe on health care, on gun rights, on abortion rights, on democracy and January 6th, on issues that the Democrats believe play more in their favor, that Governor Walz got his footing and was a much better debater and drawing much sharper contrast. The question, Jake, is, number one, does it matter at all? They're the vice presidential candidates. In the past, it hasn't mattered much. We'll see, because this campaign is very different. But at the
what
beginning,
can you
the
do
two
with
issues
this
driving the
information?
campaign right now,
Whether or not it's
Harris
true
has a big
is not
deficit on
what
the economy.
matters.
Harris has a big deficit on immigration, and Republicans were happy tonight, and Democrats a little bit nervous that on those two issues, Vance carried it.
All right. Well,
we will
we've heard
soon
their.
find out.
I mean, I think to a certain extent. I mean, listen, we need to wait and see how people react. But that analysis sounds more or less, like I say, J.D. Vance, the most unfavorable candidate on either ticket in modern era, and so he had nowhere to go but up. And I think that for the most part, he didn't come off as much of a dick as he is. He wasn't held to account on his policies as much as he is. We're going to have to turn it away, because if I see what
I want to hear
Van
what
Jones says,
I want to hear what Axelrod. No, but we have to see for
His
content
first
what he
answer
said.
on the situation in the Middle East was probably one of his weakest answers.
Yes.
He closed strong,
Insane
without
question
a
to start
question.
with.
And on those questions of abortion, the Affordable Care Act, and of course the end on democracy, I think he did very, very well. People are shooting me numbers from dial groups across the way, and pretty surprisingly to me, they basically said it was more of a draw. One thing should be noted, and that is the degree to which we discussed before the debate, there are two J.D. Vances. Mm-hmm. There's the J.D. Vance that you saw tonight, and then there's the J.D. Vance who is a right-wing social media troll.
But this is what I was saying about
really
the pitches.
Attracted the right
to
him.
You're saying you're anticipating a fastball,
door A tonight,
and he comes in with
a
slider
to
or
be
whatever.
what Donald Trump isn't, which is to sound reasonable, to be courteous to the opponent, to acknowledge that there may be some reasonableness in the opponent's argument, but I have some other differences. I mean, it was really
which Governor
pronounced.
Walz almost played along with. I mean, rather than sort of pointing out, wow, this is a completely different guy, he sort of said, oh, we agree on all
that.
Well,
and I think it comes naturally to Walz. I think someone texted me and said, I wonder how many people in the country said, gee, I wish these could be the two candidates, because they were people who seemed to be having a reasonable discussion. Bottom line on this, I don't think it changes the race at all.
Mad.
It was an interesting night.
You took my
line. It
line.
Changes the race at all.
I was struck by the fact that J.D. Vance is a significantly more eloquent Donald Trump. Watching that, I don't agree with J.D. Vance on quite a bit, but he speaks to MAGA in a way that
you were
he
in the
comes
Trump
off as
team,
incredibly
so I don't believe you at all.
I honestly would be surprised that Donald Trump doesn't want to debate again, because J.D. Vance did so well, and he's going to want the final kind of, the closing argument. But listen, J.D. Vance is a
Getting strong
chameleon.
Trump vibes from this Republican
It's one of his greatest political strengths. He showed up with a command of facts. There were some untrue things that he said, but he's tried to show the side of empathy with him that I found myself believing it. And then I remember his lies about Haitian kids, his comments about childless cat ladies, and his general record online.
See, that's the problem. You shouldn't have to remember that.
So long and short, I don't
Walz
know
should have been.
needle, but I do
with all due respect, I can't believe you said this. With all due respect, I can't believe you said that.
I think he should have been more of a dick. Said you said that, and you're fucking creep.
As J.D. Vance, and that's how they teach us to do it. Slick, slick, slick. The problem is J.D. Vance changes personalities like most people change suits. And his job was to come out tonight and try to sane wash the crazy. Sane wash all the crazy stuff he said against women, against Haitians, sane wash Donald Trump. And he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for the pesky facts. He lied the entire night. He lied about American energy production, which is up. He said it's down. He lied
but
about
the problem. Okay, this is all true.
I know, but the way he's saying it's insufferable.
But talk about that when you're done.
Well, but the point is that
about the insurrection that you said
it doesn't matter.
Didn't point this out,
he said he never
and that's the problem.
Donald Trump is the gaslighter in chief, and this is his loyal lieutenant. who came out here to try to.
Does Van Jones have some type of chart
need to be
in
very,
his,
very careful. This is
you
a
know,
very,
in his like
very
study,
guy.
where he's like, oh, tonight I've got to do this,
what he did,
and then I'll tack back
and
tomorrow.
don't fall for it.
Can I just say, well, go ahead, Dave. No. Say,
I was going to say, look, I think from this perspective, right, the Republican side of the world,
He's with himself.
10 out of 10 for J.D. Vance, 10 straight. Because Abby noted
I know,
he
this is
landed a
gonna
lot
be
of
That's
a
his
10 out
but
of
he
a
did
10,
so
bro.
with an iron fist and a velvet glove. He was very smooth.
Very slick.
He was likable.
Weird,
he looked
bro.
presidential.
The lotion.
He demanded the facts. He wasn't flustered. He was a guy you'd want to have a beer with. Okay?
No, he wasn't.
You can't will that into
Oh my
existence.
God. He was the least. That is the last dude. The idea of sitting down. Put this guy down. I mean, I'm the last person to ever care about having a beer with anybody. But I will tell you this, the idea of having to sit down and have a beer with J.D. Vance, it would feel like a job interview. It would feel honestly like some type of like weird cold call.
Yeah.
There's like this guy, I will concede that J.D. Vance did a good job of obscuring his belief system. He did a good job of not being as dickish as he has been in every other context that I've ever seen him. But the idea that this is a guy you'd want to sit down and have a beer with, this is the most uncomfortable. I can't even imagine anything more uncomfortable. And I'll tell you something, I'm not used to dealing with people like Tim Walz.
Yeah, no.
That's what's funny, because I think Tim Walz is actually way more relatable as a beer person.
Oh, of course.
Of course he is.
But this
I'm
guy's
saying,
a
like,
Republican.
the idea of sitting down with a beer for J.D. Vance,
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
first off,
it would feel
I
like
would
a job
need like a heavy barbiturate before I had that beer.
Right. Enhance the effects. No, but that's what I think, honestly, that's what people are going to take away from this. It's going to be a wash. He comes off like maybe he'll be better on the economy because he comes off like a capitalist, and there will be people that are like, oh, I'm into that. And Walz is flubs. Oh, he's, you know, for those voters, they'll say, I like him maybe, but not to be VP. But I don't think it really moves the dial.
No,
that
Vance
much.
tried to give him NPR Vance, and he gave it to him. But there's a world war brewing, and also people don't even remember when Trump got shot at. So, like, I don't think this is really going to move the needle that much.
I don't think this is going to move the needle, but I do think that that is a loss for Walz. I mean, you know, there was a much bigger target with J.D. Vance that Walz did not hit. And if you're Tim Walz, I don't think you need to do a lot to prove to people that you're a nice guy. And I definitely think he came off as a nice guy. And maybe the theory is, and you know, look, again, this could all be a correct theory. Walz definitely came off as a good guy. And I would imagine to most Americans, he also came off as somebody more likable. But the question is like, what needed to happen in this debate to make a difference in the race? I don't think anything really happened to make a significant difference in this race, you know, either way. But I think there was more of an opportunity, like J.D. Vance, to the extent that there was an opportunity for J.D. Vance to make a difference in this race. And I don't know that there is, but to the extent that there was, I think he did that.
But
he basically came off and said, like, we're not lunatics. And in fact, I got Walz to say on many occasions he agreed with me.
But that is what the campaign strategy is. We don't like the strategy, but I'm just saying for people, the strategy clearly is don't be in these closing months seen as divisive because they're targeting moderate Republican suburbanites. That's the entirety of this post-convention reality. It's why all of us on the left have been frustrated with the direction that the campaign has taken in terms of a message. And I don't know if their strategy and their internals, like, I don't have access to the information that the campaign does. So I can't assess if that's the smartest thing to do. I know that I don't agree with it politically, and I think it's short-sighted at the very least.
Yeah, because this is the really, I mean, and you know, I don't know how many people tune into this. It could be it could be a lot less, and I would imagine it's a lot less than the presidential debate. But this has been such an odd campaign, in the sense that there is, you know, one debate with the presidential candidates, one debate with the vice presidential candidates. I mean, this has got to be close to the least amount of debates that we've ever had for a presidential campaign. It's also like a truncated campaign. And there's also oddly been, because I think of what's going on in Gaza and what's going on now with Lebanon and Israel attacking, just about every country they can reach in that region and people, that the level of focus on the campaign seems less. And this is a problem for their strategy because they want to make this a referendum on Donald Trump. And they want the referendum to be, he is too chaotic, problematic, divisive. He's the agent of chaos.
Negative partisanship.
Negative partisanship. And if that was the agenda, if that was the goal to achieve for the Harris campaign tonight, I don't know how they can sit there and say that they did a 10 for 10 on that.
Yeah.
If the agenda for the Trump campaign was, we want to come off as normal, not weird, like not outside of the bounds of a normal candidacy.
Right.
We have disagreements, but we're not some type of like sui generis a threat to democracy. We want to come across that. I think J.D. Vance managed to do that. Now, whether any of this has any real impact on the campaign, I don't know. I'm just saying that to the extent that there was an opportunity here for the Harris-Walz campaign, I don't think it was fully realized. Again, I don't think that there has been a national appearance by anybody on this ticket that was geared towards people like us, people who are engaged in this stuff, who are somewhat ideological in terms of what they want to see. So it's possible that with the narrow slice of people that they're trying to appeal to, it worked, but I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. And, I don't know what the data says on what voters they're trying to target. That's the other thing. So I'm trying to be humble in my assessment of these things, but because the campaign is what it is. It took off at a very, it's incredibly nascent. It's with fragments of the Biden campaign, and I don't think Harris is a progressive in the way that we would want. I think she's a standard Democrat. And she hasn't been guiding the campaign in really any kind of meaningful way message-wise, except for recently it's been these tax credits and the tax cuts and all this moderate language. It feels like a relic with a campaign that could have taken this opportunity to maybe start something more fresh in the wake of Biden dropping out.
Chris from Como says they didn't talk about Project 2025 a single time. They did. But I think, frankly, it did come up once or twice. But if you're going to push Project 2025, you need to say it over and over again.
I mean, let it be known that the frickin' first question in the debate was something about, would you authorize Israel to do a preemptive strike on Iran? The first frickin' question. It wasn't. They've now done that twice. Remember, we remarked on it in the debate with Trump and Harris, that they did the skip the introduce yourself to the audience thing.
Yeah, it's weird.
They just jumped right into, would you help Israel destroy Iran?
It's a weird question. I mean, particularly since they're so keyed into, immigration being an important topic. But I don't know that, frankly, foreign policy is for a lot of people a thing that they're voting on. To the extent that there's any implications to foreign policy, I think it's with a specific cohort of people. I think it's with younger people, and I think it's with people who are more engaged in what's going on with Gaza.
Yeah. But you said older people. We just saw the data. We were remarking on it before the show today about what the AARP poll has, where it's that Harris has lost ground with older voters in the way that Biden hasn't. She's gained with younger voters,
over
18
Biden
through to 45, but she's lost 65 plus.
Over Biden. but not necessarily over 2020 Biden.
No, I know, but over Biden in the latest AARP poll before he dropped out, which was in April. So the point is that this is what they're saying. We don't necessarily agree, but I'm just giving, like, the strategy is appeal to those older moderate Republicans. Again, this is the writing's been on the wall about the way that this campaign has been running over the past few weeks, and I don't like it, but that's what they're trying to do.
Is it about voters or is it about powerful people and wanting to get them lined up for them walking into a election
I think they want to win the campaign, yes. I think they want to win the election.
And they think, like, getting Cheney and whoever on board.
It doesn't mean that I think that the strategy is a good one. I think they could abandon the Cheney thing and it would be totally fine.
Well, that's what I'm pointing out. Is like, what voters does this bring?
But we don't agree about the conventional wisdom in Washington all the time. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily anything more than cynical. So I don't necessarily know. I would think that if Harris is a complete continuation ideologically from Biden, then I'm completely wrong on this front. But specifically on just some older ways of thinking, I just think Biden is more of a relic, and this is still the relic of his campaign that's pushing some of this forward. But it's also just Washington conventional wisdom. So again, standard Democrat stuff, but not, I don't know, necessarily anything more than cynical in my view.
I don't know if we have any flash polls that have come out yet. Do we? Have we seen any? You know, I say this, I think I've been smart enough to say this now for probably 1 or 2 cycles, that I understand that I'm not the audience. And so people may interpret this differently.
Right.
And I am definitely open to, flash polls that says something different. I can, one thing that is quite clear is that the media spin seems to be, at least in the context of CBS and CNN, that Vance did a good job of hiding who he was. And with these debates, more often than not, these are, the spin is a big part of, what ultimately is
determines
relevant.
What people feel about the debate. They probably are 50-50 now, but then we're going to have 24 to 48 hours of a media cycle.
Well, I don't think the media, that's where I could be a bit optimistic. I think the...
I need to see what Frank Luntz says.
Well, oh, God.
Is he going now? I think the thing about that's a damning non-answer as far as sound bites, I think that's one. And then I think the moment J.D. Vance started talking over the moderators, I think those are the clippable moments.
When he complained about the...
You said you're not going to fact check.
I don't know how that is not I don't know how that's not the first thing that they're saying when they come to the break. But you also have to remember that the media is so scared of their own shadow. The idea that they'd be like, well, we don't want to bring up the fact that we fact checked one time and he got mad at us, and so, we don't want to bring that up because remember, everybody, that.
So Frank Luntz says Vance won the focus group. I don't throw that in the trash. I think that's probably going to be the consensus from people coming out.
Frank Luntz says it's 12-2 in favor of Vance. And
that's a lot.
At the first commercial break, my hashtag VP debate focus group says by a 10-3 margin that JD Vance is winning. That is a big deal since only 5 of them were leaning toward Trump Vance when the debate began. And then afterwards,
all right, that's a pretty significantly small sample size.
And it's all people that Luntz knows in his personal life.
Have been, inhaling.
And even if that were true, as we're saying,
smells crazy in there.
It doesn't affect the election that same way. I don't know.
People are going to watch us.
Militant apathy. Yep. Megyn Kelly is stunned that Walz is friends with school shooters. I really do think that he should just stand up and say, I'm not going to be friends with you anymore because you're a school shooter.
Good idea.
Yeah, I was trying to make friends with one tonight on stage.
That's just the energy he gave off.
And he misspoke a bunch up there. He said you can get rid of your you can keep your pre-existing conditions, and it's like that's just how people in the Midwest talk. And when people listen, it's like, I get what you were trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not too worried about that.
the Tiananmen Square thing was weird. Like
he rambled on and on about that.
He was like, yeah, I misspoke. I was there. I was there later. Like, whatever. Who cares? Like, I don't know. It feels like a bygone era that people care about things like that.
I was grabbing a pizza at that time, so I'm going to have to rewatch that moment. But I don't know. I just don't know if that's such a big deal.
Fox is going to obsess over it. I bet you they're talking about it right now.
Oh, here's coming up is the CNN focus group. Should we wait for that, or should we wrap it up? We'll do a couple more minutes. What do you guys think? We got to come back tomorrow.
I know. I'm not making this call. Because I'm also
get some Douthat to end.
Because I'm a sicko, but I'm also want to stand in solidarity with Bradley and Matt.
Ross Douthat is a what do you call it? Also like one of those like near Opus Dei type of guys.
Also the youngest columnist ever hired by the New York Times. Straight out of college.
Well, he's providing us with incredible contributions.
I would rate that the most successful Republican debate performance of the century, eclipsing Romney. No, bro, it wasn't better than Romney to Obama.
I would say the best Republican debate performance was when Donald Trump said, "Oh, little Marco."
Yeah.
With the tiny.
It was
the tiny penis.
I remember it was the same week Scalia died. Trump also said to Jeb Bush, the Iraq War, that was a big fat mistake.
Yes. No, I honestly, Trump, when he said to Hillary, "Because you'd be in jail," that was the thing that I think won the election for him. Like, he was basically calling her corrupt on stage. I don't know.
Yeah, show that to Trump, Ross. See if you ever get invited to Mar-a-Lago again, buddy. You think Mitt was better than me?
You know, anyway, go on.
Well, I mean, maybe we should wrap it up, and we're going to be doing a more complete breakdown tomorrow. I just think that at the end of the day, this is probably not going to do anything, and I perceive that as a missed opportunity. Because I think, J.D. Vance is a target-rich environment.
Yeah. I hope Trump's baited into doing a second debate.
He will not.
I don't think so. He's also just like, he doesn't feel like it.
Greg from Kansas, you all need to shut her down so Emma has time to rewatch the debate before going to bed.
Before the night's over?
Yeah.
I won't be rewatching this one. This one was a little bit more of a bummer for me. But we can all relive that Kamala Harris. If she ends up winning, then that will be victorious like it felt at the time.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is going to be like, what is going to impact the campaign from now until the election. And frankly, my fear, aside from the sort of substantive fear about what's going on with Israel's, real, seemingly very strong determination to get into a war with Iran, is that it will be this war. Oh, weird. And I think as much as the American public doesn't really broadly engage in foreign policy, there is a sort of just a overall sort of like ambiance that's created of chaos and whatnot, which makes it really hard to say, don't vote for the chaos person.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just, it's taking away from coverage even of her campaign. It's tying her to this disastrous policy that, by being in the administration, she is complicit in. We'll see if she gets elected, what she does. But yeah, I mean, I think it's also just like quite clear that Biden's kind of asleep at the wheel. This Politico piece that came out that basically said that Brett McGurk overrode the Pentagon. Was it even the State Department that was included? The CIA to sign to just basically like say, hey, Israel, you can do whatever you want in Lebanon as long as you keep it quiet. I mean, it presents a real concern. These total ghouls have taken control of foreign policy, and Biden either doesn't care, or he's asleep at the wheel, or he's okay with this, and none of those options are good. And all of them are selfish at the end of the day if he actually cares about Democrats winning in the fall. But he didn't think it was going to hurt his chances, so why would he think it would hurt hers? His arrogance has been on display this entire time.
Yep. Sam from Missouri says, thanks for the post-debate coverage. I suspect this debate will be meaningless because Trump will focus the news back to him as quickly as possible. I think Trump backing out of the 60 Minutes interview will be bigger news story than anything from tonight, and that's possible. Militant Apathy says you need to listen to Simone Sanders. So we just put on MSNBC for 1 second. We'll get out of here, I promise, in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
No,
MSNBC.
Trump did back out of a 60 Minutes election special, and I think the idea is they have achieved they've reached here. He's not insane level, and that's what they want.
I disagree with you on. I do agree that he was following the strategy he was given by the campaign. But I don't think that this was a debate that was designed to move people off of their team if they were already on it. This debate is not going to move very many people. There's a very small, narrow group of people who have not made up their minds about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. That small, narrow group of people, when you poll them, you talk to them, they seem to want, number one, more substance. They keep asking, I need to know more, I need to know more, I need to know more details. Tim Walz was very detailed, and he spoke the way a governor speaks about really specific issues like gun violence, like health care. He was substantive and knowledgeable. So if you're that person who the thing that's keeping you on the fence is you need more details, he gave you more details. Number two, I don't think that small, narrow group of people wanted to see a fist fight. And so I think that the people who want the fist fight are the base of the Democratic Party.
This is what I said.
Democrats want
Harris
to see someone
the
get up
campaign
there
saying.
and give a knuckle sandwich to Donald Trump. That's what they want. But that is not the group of people who need this debate. Most people are already voting and already know what they want. I think the reason that Tim Walz was effective in the way he did it, he wasn't angry, he was disappointed. And that's actually in some ways stronger if I'm that undecided, and it is a strange group of people, these people who can't decide between, arsenic and, pancakes, it's like, it's very hard to say these two things are equal. But there are those people.
Simone Sanders said
when
exactly
I've
what I
heard them
said.
talk, they say things like, I don't know. I don't understand Vice President Harris's policies on X, Y, and Z. Tim Walz gave you that specificity that I think is going to get those people to feel more comfortable. And his job was to make people feel comfortable.
This
and
is
last
what
thing I'll
she's
say
saying
is
with the Harris
to provide
campaign.
a permission structure for people who aren't
But
core
she's
Democrats
agreeing
to
with
come
this
over.
sort of the
that
premise.
lack of
I know.
meanness,
And
the kindness, the fact that he says, I want to agree with this guy. I think that we agree on a lot of things. I hate to say it. A lot of undecided, that's what they want to hear.
I just note that there are a lot of basic
That's conventional wisdom.
I think that's a lie. I think it's a lie. I think it's a lie that donors tell.
They're undecided if they are going to vote.
That's what donors want to hear.
I just think if people
so this is what Sanders is saying, and I
some
bring
of
it
the
down. I mean,
voters.
Sanders is saying we may have a problem motivating some elements of the lean Democrats, which I happen to agree with. I think the idea is push turnout for people who are already there. The idea that somebody needs more, I do not believe. If there is even a small cohort of people who are saying, I need to know Kamala Harris's policies more before I vote for her, I don't believe those people are gettable. Because anybody who is actually really looking for policy, to go into the weeds on policy, I'm sorry. That suggests to me a level of sophistication in which you would have already engaged and found out, I'm not going to vote for, there is no policy on the Republican side.
Yeah.
There simply isn't. And
that was her whole debate performance was details, plans, tax cuts, blah, blah, blah.
I really do think that Walz's job on this ticket was to basically say to people who are, should I go out and vote? My tendency is to vote for a Democrat. Should I go out and vote? I feel like, that's what needs to be done. But we will talk more about this tomorrow.
I mean, that's what the social science has said about that subject for the entirety of my adult life.
Well, the real issue is not so much that you're going to get low propensity voters to vote, but you're going to get mid-propensity voters who are already inclined to agree with your policy positions, and you're going to motivate them to come out. I just don't think that there is like this huge cohort of swing votes. And if there is this huge cohort of swing voters, frankly, I think you got to create a distinction between the two candidates. Not we agree.
I think so too.
All right, let's just hear this one thing. I wonder what they're saying.
Did the whole thing, and it was amazing. And they don't have them any longer, so I'm going to have them start with a show of hands. And I don't know if this is going to surprise you. These are not undecided voters necessarily. These are voters who could very well tip the outcome of the election come election day because they live in one of the most consequential counties in all of Michigan, Oakland County. It was 100,000, as I told you before the debate, 100,000 vote swing from Trump to Biden in the 2020 election. Macomb County, one of the neighboring counties, is also a very important swing county here. Let's just start with a show of hands. Did anybody come into this debate and leave feeling differently than when they came in terms of candidate? Raise your hand if you changed your opinion of the candidates because of this debate. Oh, really? One. Come on down.
Two. What about the guy right to your right?
Come on down. Very surprising.
You can't take the second guy because he only raised his hand because the
Henry,
first guy
what's
gave him
going on?
cover.
Okay, so you came in feeling what?
I felt like JD Vance would have done a lot worse. I think he's very awkward. His other like public appearances have been very awkward. I'm thinking back to like the scenario in the ice cream shop where he just made it so awkward for the employee, and they don't want to be on camera.
Is this guy
too, right?
actual
Yeah,
undecided?
I just thought, well, like why can't he just be normal like the rest of us? Like,
And that's how
This
you
is
come out here.
fucking
I
stage.
felt he did a lot better. I feel the way
I'm
JD Vance
sorry,
works
they're
is he
all
works very
college
well and he has a lot of
kids.
preparation.
Well,
This
they're
is
going to
the debate.
vote.
He knows about it weeks
I
in ahead-
know.
weeks in advance, so he's
You
able to
felt like you
prepare.
prepared better here.
I think he prepared very well.
So one of the things we do.
I mean, I think that's true.
Thank you very
JD
much.
Vance
Thank
did
you.
not come off.
I know, but
as-
this is not a representative group.
It's not representative,
Guns at the
but I think-
beginning of the debate, and one of the strongest reactions here, I thought was interesting, was Rachel, what you were just talking about when JD Vance said one of the ways, ultimately, that we can stop gun violence in this country is by having better locks on our doors. Did anybody react? You're laughing back here. No, you. What's your name?
Nora.
What'd you think when you heard JD Vance talk about that? Jimena was talking about how because of what happened.
All right, here's the
at
problem
one
with
of
this.
the
We don't need
neighboring
to hear
schools,
anymore. Is that this is a crowd of people who are not going to vote for the Republican.
I know.
And they should be, after this debate, doubled over in laughter and mocking and scorn of the Republican candidate because they're pre-positioned, and they're not. That's the only thing that I'm worried about. That they're not like, oh my God, did you see that? Like, they're not all rushing to the microphone and go, JD Vance is a freak. We've got to vote today. That's what you want out of these people. And I don't know that we got that.
Well, because you're running toward Mark Cuban. Kamala's running toward Mark Cuban. Like, that's why. Like, it's defanging the entire, what should be a movement. There's no movement there. They want to coast into because Trump is so unlikable, which he is, and maybe it'll be enough.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of afraid that you're right. And, hopefully that will be enough. We'll see. Maybe they have polling that is really different than the polling that we're seeing.
I'm not even saying what's true and what's not. Essentially, it's just like Hillary Clinton had internal polling that was really wrong, and that could be the case. But we'll see. We'll see. It hasn't been a good week for the campaign, or 2 weeks for that matter.
Folks, we appreciate you tuning in. As you know, I do a live show every day of the week at 12 noon, and it's available later through the magic of video on demand.
Whoa.
We stream, of course, on Twitch, which is Poggers. I think everybody knows that.
I feel so empowered by the term video on demand. Like Henry VIII.
YouTube, which also provides you a video per your demand. Also on TikTok. We have an Instagram account as well and a Twitter account. Follow us on all of your social media platforms. And thank you for joining us tonight. We will be live tomorrow at noon. Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job today. Fart Wayne saying you guys are finally getting VOD tech. Yes, we have. We have done it.
TiVos.
No stream on X. Who gives a shit? We will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you?